what to expect when you're going to court. Maybe it's the first time you've ever gone, and let's assume for the moment you're going pro se. You're going by yourself or for yourself, and you just want to get oriented. What should you know? What should you expect? Well, the first thing I would highly recommend is you actually take an extra day and you go to court. If it's small claims court, you go to small claims court. If it's superior court, go to that one. And you go there and just observe. Go through security, sit in the audience, anyone can, and listen and watch what happens, and take a note. You could take a notebook with you and write down notes and ideas that you see. Now that's sort of like the baseball player going into the batter's box and getting warmed up. It's a real good idea to go to court at least once before you have to go to court to actually see it in operation. I must say, I'm going to give you a lot of good tips and outline, but nothing will beat actually going there yourself. But getting warmed up, and it's not your turn to bat, okay? So that's actually step one. It sounds very simple, but you have to take extra time and energy to do that, but it'll be well worth your while. Now, let's go on to some frequently asked questions, some of the big standard ones. Well, one is, what about being on time? Very, very important. And cases have been lost or won because someone wasn't on time. And I want to tell you how to plan your time. Say your hearing is at 10 o'clock. Well, what time should you get there? I think the latest you should get there is 9:15, okay? To have 45 minutes. Why 45 minutes? You have to go through security, and sometimes there are very long lines. So you have to plan plenty of time ahead. If your hearing is at 9 o'clock, okay, you get there at, 8:15, 8 o'clock. The line can be very long, and you have to go through security one at a time to get into the court. And when you go through security, they usually do not allow you to take in a cell phone with you to the court. And there's no recording of anything by the public. So you have to know that, and that would be very big. And of course, they'll give you a little tray to put all your metal objects into. And they'll have a wand, just like at the airport security. And they'll be looking to see if you are coming in, of course, with any weapons, which are absolutely not allowed. Nothing whatsoever. So first step, you're going to go through security, but to do that, you have to have extra time just for that. And I've seen many a case with the lawyers themselves be lost or won because the person didn't show up on time. The court says, well, they're not here. I'm going to enter a default judgment against them. So sad, too bad, you lose. And then you have to go back and see if you can reopen it, and it can be very difficult. So, as they say, a stitch in time saves 9. Being careful with what you're doing, you'll save yourself a lot of aggravation, and that's what that little saying means. So, be on time. And then once you get there, through security, you go to the clerk's office. If you don't know where you've been, but you should know where you're going because you've been there once before. But you still could go to the clerk's office again to confirm, is your case being heard in this court and in what courtroom? Very, very important, very, very simple. I can't tell you enough the problems that have happened. One time I told a client, well, this is a very simple matter. Look, you just go to court and tell the judge what happened. The judge is going to grant you what you want. The client couldn't find the right courtroom. He lost. It was unbelievable to me. And one of the things you should do, there's a security there, and you, of course, can ask them any question you want about where you're supposed to go, and they'll tell you within a snap. So there's the clerk's office you can go to for directions, and there's also security personnel around that you can ask for directions, and they will tell you right where to go. So that's getting to the courtroom, getting there. And then once you get there, it's a very good idea. There's always a clerk that's going to be assisting the judge. And the clerk is a lot of times up at the bench or up in the area where the judge or the magistrate is going to be. And you want to go up to that person and tell them your name and that you're here in attendance. If you had to step out for some reason, go to the restroom, in your case, your name was called, the clerk would say, well, so-and-so was here, I don't see them now, and the judge will probably pass it. Now, in small claims court, there's a separate clerk's office that you can go to, too, and get directions, and the same thing with the superior court. So that's sort of like getting there and finding your way around. What shouldn't you bring with you? Well, one big thing, I've seen it happen many times, people bring their small children with them because they can't get a babysitter, and everyone understands that, and it's too expensive and inconvenient. However, the little ones start acting up, and you'll be asked to leave the room if they're so disruptive. So it's best not to go with small children. People do it, but it's best not to. And a lot of times complications arise because of it, and we all know about that. Another thing to look at is people ask how to come dressed. That's always a big question. Well, I tell people, when you go to small claims court, it's best to go neat and casual. Now, what shouldn't you wear? Of course, flip-flops, shorts, things that are low cut, just a neat appearance. No, you don't have to wear a tie. I do recommend it for superior court because it is more formal. Small claims court is an informal court, but you still want to go there. You could have a jacket on, but no tie. It would be perfectly fine, I think, depending on the weather and so forth. But when you go to court, don't go in cutoffs and just looking like you rolled out of bed and you're a total wreck. Neat and casual is the order of the day, I think, in small claims court. Superior court, I do highly recommend at least the jacket, and the tie is optional for a person who is an attorney. But when you put the tie on, of course, it gives off a signal that you're taking this very seriously. So I would recommend it. So that's essentially about going neat and casual. No, try not to wear sneakers, even though many people do. Flip-flops are out. It's really bad because there's a time and place for how you should dress. And this is a formal setting, and the judges like to see that you're treating it in a respectful way. It sends off all kinds of signals that are good vibes. Be organized. This is very big. Now let's say you have some documents that you want to present. You should go with actually the original document and 3 copies. You say, well, why that? Well, 1 copy, the original, you might want to put into evidence and leave it there. 1 copy for the judge and your opponent, if it is there, that attorney, what might be there, and you're there by yourself, have a copy for the attorney. This is especially in small claims court. And also, I highly recommend that you organize your file. And I want to show you this little brown folder that has these little clips in it where you can punch the papers and put them in and organize them. And having your file organized is impressive to the judges. Most people aren't organized at all. And at the same time, it helps calm you down because you know where things are. There's also I don't have it around here right now, but a paper hole puncher. Now, that costs money, and this particular type of file where you can attach your papers to the file, you have to buy a whole box of these at Staples in order to get one of these folders. So you might try to find some way that you can get one on the cheap. Or you go to Staples and you get several folders, and maybe they'll have some individual ones there for sale. And you can do that and keep the papers organized. And you might have even two of these files. One of these with your notes and your arguments that you want to present to the judge so that you're organized, and another file with the documents organized that you would be handing into the court that you'd want the judge or the magistrate to read. So, and some people even have an accordion file, and they work that way with it. But have a file, have a notebook, have your pen, even an extra pen in case your first one runs out. I do that. And then you say, okay, you can take notes, what is said, the other side comes out with their story, and you're ready to take notes. That's very, very, very important. Courtroom etiquette. People make a mistake with this all the time, especially the newbies. If you're seated at a table and the other side is speaking, that's fine. But if you go to speak, always stand up. Always. When you go to speak, you stand up. If the judge or magistrate addresses you, talks to you, don't sit in your chair. Actually get up out of your chair and stand up like I'm about to do. You do not sit in your chair. It's courtroom etiquette. It's very traditional. One, you could be heard a lot better that way. Two, it shows you're following the procedures, and you get more respect that way. And it's very important. I know, of course, you think of Rodney Dangerfield. He was always complaining that he didn't get enough respect. Well, it is very important. So you stand up when you're spoken to, or you want to say something. Another thing is, if the other side is talking, do not interrupt them. It shows very poor style. You do not do that. It's a no-no. Let the other person say whatever he or she wants, then you take over when it's your turn. And they can't speak up or say anything while you're talking. It's very important courtroom etiquette because the judge wants a style of presentation. They want one of deliberation. One person speaks and then the other person speaks, and it's just polite manners anyway. Another thing you shouldn't do is this. I've seen this happen many times. People are sitting down when they should be standing up, and they put their hand over their mouth like this. I want to reach over and put the hand down because it makes the words mumbled. You can't hear the person. It acts as if you're trying to hide something because you're covering up. No, do not put your hand over your mouth. Keep your hand away from your face at all times because you're paying attention. And obviously in this day of viruses and so forth, it's a double good idea. So have the right attitude and respect that you're there to make your presentation. Do not raise your voice. It doesn't do any good. Don't swear, of course, or call someone bad names. It doesn't work, and the court doesn't like it. We want to be objective and not inflamed. It's about courtroom etiquette. Some people ask me, what happens if you have an attorney, this is usually in a superior court case, not often in a small claims court case, and say that attorney doesn't arrive on time. It can happen. All right, what do? Your case is called. Then you just simply stand up and ask and say, Your Honor, my attorney hasn't arrived here yet. May I have a moment to go out in the hall and try to call his office? 99.99 times out of 100, the court is going to say yes, and they'll pass the case. So you could just ask the court,
Can I go out in could the court pass this case for the moment where I go out in the hall and call my attorney? All right, now maybe the attorney has something could happen to the attorney. Don't jump the gun and think, well, he or she is being derelict in their duty. Could they have messed up? Yep, it can happen. But you won't be prejudiced because of it, as long as you just handle it the way I showed you. An emergency. Let's say you're going to court and you get a flat tire, or a big car accident, or something else happens, and you can't get there. What should you do? All right. For this, you should have the telephone number for the clerk's office with you, and hopefully you have a cell phone. Call the clerk's office, identify yourself, have your case number, and tell them what's happening, and ask them if they'll report this to the judge. You could say, I'm going to be late because I got a flat tire. I might be late because I got a flat tire. Or whatever else happened. Something could be so serious that you can't go to the court. Now, God forbid that happens. In other words, a real medical emergency. Again, I would call the clerk's office, make certain you get the name of the person that you've told us what's going to happen. If an order or something is entered against you, if you write a motion to reopen and reconsider, you can say, on this such and such a day, I called and talked to so-and-so at the clerk's office to ask that this message be passed on to you. Also, the court loves documents. And if you have a real medical emergency, you can have some letter or some document to substantiate it, and you would attach it to your motion to reopen the case and say, okay, this is what terrible accident was happening, and based on that, we would ask the court to reopen the decision that was entered against me. The chances are you would succeed with that, okay? But you have to tell the truth. And if you are just making up a lie and they catch you in that lie, God have mercy on your soul, because perjury is severely dealt with in the courtroom. It's absolutely not allowed. Yes, we all know the politicians lie through their teeth, but when you go into court, and they still try to lie when they're in court, they get caught in perjury, they will get wrapped. And President Clinton was caught in a perjury, and he almost lost his presidency over it. It is serious, and therefore, just don't do it. How to address the court. If it's a judge, you always say, Your Honor. Very standard, and you hear that all the time on television. Now, if you go to small claims court, a judge could be hearing the case. They usually don't, but they can. What you should do is ask the clerk of the court, who will be hearing the case today? Is it a magistrate, or is it going to be a judge? And the clerk of the court will tell you, oh, today is going to be a magistrate, or it's a magistrate. So if you stand up, you don't say to the magistrate, Your Honor, you say, magistrate, you call him by that time, or say it's Attorney Jones. You could even say Attorney Jones, address it that way, is very proper. But it's not proper to call someone who isn't a judge Your Honor. I see that happen a lot at times. And you want to just show that you're more aware of what's going on. And the only way to be certain about it, because you probably don't know who the judges are or who the magistrates are, you just ask the clerk of the court, and he'll tell you who's going to be there. And you can even ask him, when I address him, should I address him as magistrate? Now, if you went too far, you could slip of the tongue and say, Your Majesty, but that would be completely inappropriate, of course. But that could happen by mistake. It would be funny. But you could say, magistrate, I want to present this evidence for your consideration. That'd be fine. So that's about addressing the court, so you know how to speak up correctly. So, how long will it take? Well, you have to figure if you're going to go in the morning, it's going to take, you have to plan on the entire morning. Why? They have a docket, and they call people one at a time, and they hear them out. Oh, so say you are number 15 on the list. Usually they go in order, overwhelmingly, and you can look to see where the docket is, and it's usually posted outside the courtroom, or there's a in the superior, as in the small claims court, but in the superior court there's a calendar that they hand out, sort of like a playlist, and it's you can go through and read and find where your case is, and you can see how far down the list you are. So it could take all morning. It could even spill over into the early afternoon. There is no real telling how long it's going to take. Your time to bat, time before the judge or the magistrate, might be 15 minutes or whatever. It could be longer or even shorter. I can't just tell you. You have to plan. If it's in the morning, I always plan I'm going to be there till the afternoon. And sometimes it goes, my case still isn't reached, so we're there right after lunch. That answers how long will it take. It takes some time. And that's why people, to put a plug in for the lawyers, hire the lawyers, because they'd rather have the lawyer there sitting around. But it is cheaper if you just try to do it yourself. But then, as Abraham Lincoln once said, he who has himself for a lawyer has a fool for a client. You really can blow things. Now, but small claims is meant to be dealt with without lawyers. But sometimes the cases can be so complex and serious that it would be advisable to hire a lawyer. Not often, I would say, but it can happen depending on the case. One thing you should know about small claims court, and I'll be saying this later in other videos, once you have a case heard in small claims court, you can't appeal it. It's over. It's like sudden death overtime. So it's very important that you do your best with it. How to find the courthouse. All right, we're going to go to what's called Google Earth, and with it, we're going to zoom on down to New London, Connecticut, the London Superior Court. So here we go. Now we're in New London, and we're going to be zooming in to the courthouse itself and some surrounding landmarks. Now the court is located at 70 Huntington Street, New London, Connecticut, 06320. And the clerk's number, clerk of the court, is 860-443-5363. Now you should put that number in your cell phone on the clerk of the Superior Court in London, because if you have a question, you can call their office up and confirm anything you want and get directions or any other questions, have them answered. Now what you're looking at right now, we're looking down at the old colonial courthouse, built in about in the 1700s, and it's rumored that George Washington went there once. Now attached to it is the new courthouse, as we're looking over here and seeing, and there it is, as you can see. That is the total New London Superior Court complex. Across the street from the colonial, or actually from the new modern part of the building, is if we go right here, you will see that is Fiddlehead's, a grocery store. And then If we keep going, we'll go over and you'll see across the street at the top of State Street. That's where the Superior Court is located. Right across the street is the Guard Theater. And directly across from the Guard Theater is the New London Public Library. So those are the two big landmarks around the courthouse. And it's right at the top of State Street in New London, Connecticut. Now, let's see about entering the building, because it's a little tricky in some ways. First, there's you do not use the entrance to the old colonial part of the building, even though it's used inside, because that's locked. That's not used as an entrance or an exit anymore. It used to be, obviously, as you can see, where the American flag is, and there's the doors in the front. Now, let's go and we'll look at the entrance from the street level. And we're going to go down there, and you can see that that actually is an entrance. But recently, it hasn't been used. It's closed or locked. And to get into the building, you go what would appear to be, you don't go there to the front there, you go in between the buildings and down the stairs, and we'll show you that, to the first level. I'll try to bring this up now for you. And there are the stairs that you go down. You see that little mouse going up and down, that little arrow. You go down those stairs if you come in from State Street. Now, there's parking in the back of the court, and we'll show you. You can see it there right now. There is parking, but you got to get there very early because there's limited parking, and you might have to park someplace on the street, okay? Now, let's just see if we can find the entrance, which is a little hidden. There it is, going down those stairs. Right there between those two pillars, as you can see, there's doors, and you go in there, and there's security. Now, that's the first floor. It's the ground floor. It's a little getting disoriented with it, but you go through security, and you can ask the security, just like at the airport, I'm going to go to small claims court, or where's the clerk of the court's office? So you can go there and ask any questions that you want to ask for orientation to find, well, where is the courtroom that you have to go to? Now, that's very important because it's going to take you some time to figure it out, but the court personnel, especially the security, will tell you exactly where you have to go. Now, that's getting to the courthouse, finding the courthouse, and some parking, which is on the streets, and you have to be careful to watch the signs, the way you can park or not park, or possibly you could park in the back of the courthouse. Small claims and Superior Court are in this building. So that's why it'd be very important sometimes to check in with the clerk's office. And at the clerk's office, they have a bulletin board, and they post where the hearings are going to occur. And of course, you might not figure it out too well because it'll be maybe your first time there. So again, you ask security or ask the clerk of the court's office, where is the courtroom? Now we're right now there on Huntington Street, in this State Street. At the top of State Street and across the way is Huntington, named after a colonial person, of course. Okay. So that's essentially where it is. That's where you find it. You can get on your own, if you have a cell phone with GPS, you can put in 70 Huntington Street, London, Connecticut, and it'll take you right there to find it. And many people are familiar with it. And you should be able to easily find it. These are the questions a lot of times many clients ask me, or I go over with them before we go to court.
so that they get some sense of familiarity with the whole process, and it calms them down. Because like anyone going into a new environment, you've never been there before, and you don't know what to expect, it's natural to be nervous. And that's why, again, I've highly recommended go take a day to go to a hearing, and you don't have to sit through all of them. You could just sit through a number and listen to them and get warmed up. And you say, okay, now I have a good idea of what to expect because I actually been there and I saw things, and you might see people do things incorrectly, and you could just take note of that. And you might see, and of course you'll see people doing things very correctly, especially the attorneys, because they've been used to doing it all the time. That ends our presentation on what to expect when you go to court.